Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, whoever is watching ICDT's series of interviews with the statesmen of today, especially former and current Secretary Generals of NATO and hopefully high representatives of the European Union and maybe more. Uh, One of the statesmen I can introduce to you, although he doesn't need too much introduction, is Lord George Robertson, who has a very distinguished career. As he is of my age, I will not go through his career because it's very long, as you will see. If you look it up, please do. But the most important thing is that he was the NATO Secretary General at the turn of the century, of the millennium, and he was participant and decision maker in quite a number of important decisions. Most importantly, as we speak today, in August of 2021, under his command, NATO joined the Afghanistan operation, and as we see today, it is going to end. So I may call you George, because we've been friends for a long time, and hopefully we'll remain friends for a long time. George, how did you see the world when you were sitting in the office of the NATO Secretary General, and how does it compare to the situation of today?
I came to NATO in 1999, which was after Bosnia, the intervention in Bosnia, and just after the intervention in Kosovo, where I had been the British Defence Minister. So we saw a strategic situation which had settled after both of these out-of-area operations. I was determined to repair relations with Russia, which had broken down after Kosovo. I wanted to improve the capabilities of the NATO countries because our effectiveness depended on having modern capabilities. And I wanted to modernize NATO, reform NATO, so that it was much more agile than it had appeared to many people to be during the Kosovo campaign. In fact, my period in NATO coincided with an improvement in NATO-Russia relations, the creation of the NATO-Russia Council, and a good working relationship with Vladimir Putin and his ministers. But of course, everything was affected, first of all, by the insurgency in what's now North Macedonia in 2001, where the European Union and NATO came together in a way that we'd hoped might well happen, but came together actually in the personalities of myself and Javier Solana and solved that problem. Indeed, I 2 weeks ago attended the 20th anniversary commemoration of the peace agreement in North Macedonia, where the insurgents and the government are now working hand in hand together in a unified society. But the end of that year was to change NATO and the world forever, with the attacks on New York and on Washington by Al-Qaeda, the events in Afghanistan, which followed the first invoking of Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, which I did on the 12th of September 2001. That's the first time it had ever been invoked. And we were engaged in, first of all, Afghanistan in sorting out Al-Qaeda, and then manning up the International Security and Assistance Force, ISAF. That was my initial foray into NATO, and we will celebrate or commemorate or mark the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and the invoking of Article 5 by watching television pictures of the Taliban back in control in Afghanistan. The wheel has come round full circle.
What do you think of the events in Afghanistan today? Was these 20 years a waste of time and waste of money and waste of effort, or have we achieved something important?
We achieved a lot in Afghanistan, and it was therefore not a waste. We've had 20 years without the Taliban, 20 years with not a single terrorist plot organized from inside Afghanistan, no ripple effects coming out of Afghanistan as it used to do before the NATO operation. And Afghani society is completely different to what it was in the period 1996 to 2001. People have tried and sampled elections and an elected government. They've sampled women going to school and educated in universities. They've sampled sport and music. So Afghan society that the Taliban are now taking over is a very different society and will be much more difficult to control than it once was before. I think the way we've come out of Afghanistan is a tragedy, an unforced strategic error by the Americans to end a mission which actually was being successful. And, we've seen an evacuation taking place the wrong way round. Normally in any evacuation, civilians come out first, then you have the support staff and contractors, and only then does the military come out. In this case, the Americans took the military out first, and hence we're now seeing these shambolic scenes taking place at Kabul airport just now. I think this is a miserable way for our whole mission to end up, despite the fact that we had so many successes during the last 20 years.
What do you think? This definitely will be one of the most important events during the Biden presidency. Will it haunt him until the end, or at the end will it be? How will history evaluate this move? Was it the right thing to do? You said, and I agree, that the way it was done was disastrous. But did the American president have any other choice?
The mission was inevitably going to come to a conclusion. It's how it was done. We came out of Bosnia, 65,000 troops in 1995, now a handful of paramilitaries actually there today. Kosovo, thousands of troops deployed, and now only a handful in location. So that is the way in which you do it. You withdraw in a graduated way based on the facts on the ground. This is the wrong way to do it. Will Joe Biden be haunted by it? Well, I wonder. It'll be quite popular among some sections of American society. Certainly, he inherited this dreadful deal that Donald Trump did in Qatar, and he undoubtedly will blame Donald Trump for that. But I think the longer term legacy is going to be pretty dreadful. International terrorism has been given a huge morale boost. The West has been weakened quite dramatically. NATO and the United States have lost authority. And by the very fact that the old principle about we go in together and we come out together has been broken, is going to be a serious handicap for NATO in the future. The repercussions as well will go beyond Afghanistan. And although the Russians and the Chinese and the Pakistanis are cheering, actually they're only cheering two cheers, because Russia, China, and Pakistan know that a Taliban-controlled Afghanistan is going to be future trouble for them. And they'll be worried by that too. So I think strategically, the kaleidoscope has been shaken again. And although it's not easy to see how the pieces will fall into place, we can be sure that this reverse for the West, for the Americans and for NATO, is going to cast a long shadow.
You said, George, that you had a good working relationship with Vladimir Putin. It cannot be said about his successor, who now sits in your former office. What has changed? Is it the same Putin who we have to deal with in the Kremlin, or has he changed, or the situation? But how do you see the current day Russia and Vladimir Putin in that context?
Well, this is not the same Vladimir Putin that I met. The one that I met was new in office, had ambitions to be part of Western Europe. He said that explicitly to me in my first meeting. He's not the Vladimir Putin of 2002 at the NATO-Russia summit in Italy, who was committed with all the other 19 countries of NATO to working together on a whole range of specific practical areas. He's mutated into something different, something authoritarian, a different model that has nothing to do with the democracy of the West. He's been in power too long. He's not challenged by anybody or anything. He rarely, if any times, meets ordinary people who might tell him anything he doesn't want to hear. So over the years, I think we had missteps. I think we mishandled him. Perhaps in the early days, the American administration of George W. Bush and Donald Rumsfeld had no great interest in cooperating with Russia, but they too had missteps as well. And what they did in Georgia, what they did in Crimea, were all aspects of Russian foreign policy that were completely opposite of what a good NATO-Russia relationship would have produced.
Well, my last question is, and you will guess, is about China. When you were in the office, China was somewhere looming over the horizon. We knew that China was there. We knew that something will happen, but we didn't know what. Now there is no event, no discussion where China is not present, at least on the minds of the people. And there are several interpretations of the future of China. What do you think? Is China a real communist power? Is China aggressive? Or is China striving for a superpower status, which China inevitably will have? And how do we have to react? Should we oppose China to try to prevent China to become a superpower, or rather try to change, to influence China in such a way that China can become a superpower and integrate it into the international system?
China has a grand strategy which it's putting into place, and the tragedy for the West is that we don't have a grand strategy at all. We move step by step, day by day, and therefore we can be caught unawares by a China that has got that grand economic, strategic, military, territorial strategy that it's putting into place at the moment. So it's developing its superpower status, building on the economic model, which blended communism with capitalism, has now moved into the military strategic area. Its linkages with Moscow, where Moscow is by far the junior partner, and by means of the debt trap diplomacy is gaining huge purchase in the developing world, and indeed right into the very heart of Europe itself. They control the port of Piraeus in Greece, in the Eastern Mediterranean. So, I think we've got to be aware of what they're doing and what their objective is. We need to challenge them when they threaten our interests. But most of all, we've got to keep an eye on them and make sure that that grand strategy of theirs does not too easily exploit the lack of a strategy on our side. The safety and stability of the world is actually at stake when it comes to dealing with the People's Republic of China.
Okay, so we made a quick, but I think substantial tour d'horizon of the world today, and the changes that have occurred. The good news is that, as far as I can tell, you haven't changed. So that's why many people want to hear your opinion. I'm definitely one of them, and I'm sure our colleagues and students who will watch this interview will be enlightened by many things that you have said. So thank you very much for that. I don't promise that this is the last time that I bother you, but you know, you are good, so it really requires a continuation, but something will come. Thank you very much, and enjoy your time. Enjoy your I know that you have a very nice lordship in Port St. Helens, and you are very happy with that. I hope everybody will have a similar reason to be happy with something that is far away from the troubles of this world. It's a small piece of peace and stability. Enjoy it. Remain with us for a long time, and I say to you, not goodbye, but see you soon.
Look forward to seeing you, hopefully in Budapest, one of my favorite cities in the world. Even if its government is not, but it's certainly one of my favorite cities.
I think.
Thank you, it's fun.
I think normal intellectuals never like the government in power, so that's a normal thing. Thank you very much, and I hope to welcome you soon. Thank you. Thanks.